My mother called me on a Tuesday afternoon. She had just come back from her doctor, and she was crying. Her fasting blood sugar had hit 191. Her A1C was 8.6, and her doctor had just told her it was time to start insulin injections. She said to me, "I thought I was doing everything right. I walk every single morning. I stop the cake. I take my medication. Why is it still getting worse?" And here is the thing. She was right. By every standard of advice the system had given her. She was a model patient. She was doing everything she had been told, but the advice itself was the problem. I have spent over 20 years in clinical practice, and what I eventually discovered, what the system almost never teaches, is that managing blood sugar is not about willpower. It is not about eating less. It is about something happening deep inside your cells, something invisible, something the system has no financial reason to explain to you. Today, I am going to show you 10 specific foods that target that cellular problem directly. We are going to go from number 10 down to number 1. And I want you to pay close attention to number 1. I'm going to tease it right now and reveal it at the very end. Because when I first heard about it, I almost dismissed it entirely, and that would have been a catastrophic mistake for my patients. But before we dive in, do me one quick favor. Type your morning fasting number this week right in the comments below. Just the number, I read every single one, and the real numbers this community shares shape exactly what I make next. Now, the system is designed around one goal: manage your blood sugar symptom, prescribe something to push the number down, and keep you coming back month after month for refills. There is no billable code for teaching you how food talks directly to your insulin receptors at the cellular level. There is no appointment slot long enough to explain why your liver is flooding your bloodstream with glucose while you sleep. There is no revenue model built around you not needing the prescription anymore. That is the system. That is not your personal doctor's fault. Your doctor is as trapped in that model as you are. They get 7 minutes per visit, 7 minutes to see you, review your chart, write the prescription, and move on. There is simply no time to teach you what I am about to teach you today, but you are here, and that changes things. Before I go any further, I need to be completely transparent. Everything I share today comes from published research and clinical observation. These foods work alongside your existing medical care. They do not replace it. If you are on medication, continue it. Discuss any changes with your personal doctor. What we are doing here is adding powerful allies to the battle, not abandoning the ones you already have. Now let me explain what is actually happening inside your body. Because if you do not understand the mechanism, you will not stick to the solution, and that would be a tragedy. Here is what almost nobody explains in a standard office visit. High blood sugar almost never starts with your pancreas. It starts upstream, with a process called insulin resistance. And here's the mental picture I want you to hold. Your cells are like houses with locked front doors. Insulin is the key. Every time you eat something containing sugar or starch, your pancreas releases insulin. That insulin goes to your cells and tries to unlock those doors, so glucose can move out of your bloodstream and into the cell where it belongs. That is how energy is supposed to work. But here is what happens after decades of processed food and constant blood sugar spikes. The locks start to jam. The key still exists. Your pancreas keeps producing more and more keys, but the doors stop opening properly. Glucose piles up in your bloodstream. Your pancreas exhausts itself, and your blood sugar climbs regardless of how much medication you add. That is insulin resistance. That is the real enemy, and that is the exact mechanism that every single one of these 10 foods targets. Now, number 10. Number 10 is walnuts. And I know what you are thinking. Walnuts. That is your big revelation? Stay with me. Because what I am about to tell you about walnuts is something most people, including most doctors, have never connected. Walnuts contain a very specific type of fatty acid called alpha-linolenic acid. It is a plant-based omega-3. And here is the critical piece. Most of the damage driving insulin resistance does not happen in your blood. It happens at the receptor itself, at the surface of your cells. That is where the lock is jammed. And chronic low-grade inflammation is what does the jamming. Alpha-linolenic acid works as a direct anti-inflammatory agent at the receptor level. Research published in the journal Diabetes, Obesity, and Metabolism found that participants with type 2 diabetes who added walnuts daily saw meaningful reductions in fasting insulin levels, not just post-meal spikes, fasting insulin. That is the baseline number that tells you how hard your pancreas is straining just to keep up. Lower fasting insulin means your pancreas is under less strain. It means those locks are starting to unjam. Use a small handful daily, roughly a quarter cup, 7 to 10 whole walnuts, raw or dry roasted, never candied or honey coated. Replace a processed snack with them. Do not just add them on top of everything else you eat. One important note: if you are taking blood thinners like warfarin, the omega fatty acids in walnuts can affect your clotting levels. That is not a reason to avoid them. It is a reason to mention it to your doctor before adding them in therapeutic amounts. Always start low and watch how your body responds. But if walnuts impressed you, wait until you hear number 9, because number 9 does something that takes an entirely different approach to the same problem. Number 9 is chia seeds. These tiny gray and black seeds are one of the richest sources of soluble fiber you can buy anywhere, and the way they work is almost mechanical. When chia seeds hit the water inside your stomach, they expand into a thick, gel-like substance. Picture a dry sponge dropping into a bowl of water. It absorbs everything around it and swells. That gel then physically wraps around the carbohydrates in your meal, and it slows their absorption to a crawl. Instead of glucose flooding your bloodstream all at once, it trickles in slowly and steadily over 2 to 3 hours. No flood, no giant spike, no panic release of insulin. Your pancreas responds calmly instead of desperately. Chia also carries plant omega-3s that work alongside the walnuts to cool that underlying inflammation. The combination is not accidental. The fiber controls the rate of glucose release. The omega-3 addresses the receptor resistance. 2 different mechanisms: one food, 1 to 2 tablespoons daily, stir them into yogurt, water with lemon, or a smoothie, give them 10 minutes to gel before drinking, and drink plenty of water because all that fiber needs liquid to move through your system. If you take diabetes medication, adding this much fiber can change how quickly your medication absorbs. Watch your numbers more closely in the first 2 weeks and flag anything unusual to your doctor. Now here's what I need you to understand before we move to number 8. Something I mentioned at the start, and something I'm going to keep coming back to. Every single food on this list does one of 3 jobs. It either slows the glucose coming in, cools the inflammation that keeps your cells deaf to insulin, or directly wakes the receptor up so your own biology can do the work it was designed to do. Number 8 does all 3, imperfectly, but simultaneously, and that makes it uniquely powerful in the morning. Number 8 is avocado. Here's the myth I want to destroy right now. For years, people avoided avocados because of the fat content, and that fear has cost them enormously. The fat in an avocado is monounsaturated fat, the same family as olive oil, and it is one of the most blood sugar-friendly substances you can put on a plate. Here is why. When you add half an avocado to a meal that contains carbohydrates, you are not removing the carbohydrate. You are fundamentally changing the rate at which it converts to blood sugar. The healthy fat and the fiber inside the avocado slow your entire digestive process. That rice or toast you ate alongside the avocado, it releases its glucose gently over time instead of in a rush. Monounsaturated fat has also been shown in multiple studies to improve insulin sensitivity directly. Your cells start answering that knock a little faster. The lock becomes less stiff. Half an avocado daily is a sensible amount. Put it on your eggs in the morning, mash it onto whole grain toast, add it to a salad that has any starch in it. Anywhere you have a carbohydrate, avocado softens the blow. Now, I want to introduce you to someone before we go further, because everything we are discussing today has a face, a real face. Sandra is 67 years old. She spent 31 years as a postal carrier in Virginia, on her feet every single day, regardless of weather. She retired 3 years ago, and within 18 months of retirement, her body seemed to turn on her. Her fasting blood sugar climbed from normal into the 180s. Her doctor put her on metformin, then increased the dose, then added a second medication, and her A1C still sat at 8.7. When I first spoke with Sandra, she was not angry, she was exhausted. She said to me, "I did everything they told me. I just feel like my body does not want to cooperate anymore." I want you to hold on to Sandra's story because something happened to her over the next 12 weeks that I am going to share with you in pieces as we build through these 10 foods, because her transformation does not make sense until you understand the mechanism behind each one. And the mechanism behind number 7, This is the one that changed everything for her morning numbers specifically. Number 7 is eggs, whole eggs, yolk and all. I need to set the record straight. For decades, people were told the yolk was dangerous. That fear pushed an entire generation toward sugary breakfast cereals, granola bars, and orange juice. And those alternatives were infinitely more damaging to blood sugar than any egg ever was. Here is what a whole egg actually does in your body. It contains almost no carbohydrate. On its own, it barely moves your blood sugar at all. But the real effect is something researchers call the second meal effect, when you start your morning with 2 or 3 whole eggs instead of cereal. You do not just improve breakfast blood sugar. You stabilize your response all the way through to lunch. You walk into your midday meal with calmer numbers and smaller spikes. The protein and fat keep you genuinely full. The mid-morning cravings that normally send you toward a cookie or piece of bread quietly disappear. 2 to 3 whole eggs in the morning. Add that half avocado on top and you have built something close to a perfect blood sugar breakfast. Now, back to Sandra. When Sandra described her typical morning to me, she mentioned something that stopped me. She started every day with a glass of orange juice because her mother told her it was good for the heart, then a bowl of low-fat granola, then her medication. Her fasting number was in the 180s before she even got dressed. Here is what was happening. Orange juice, even the no sugar added kind, contains roughly 26 grams of sugar per 8-ounce glass. Without fiber, without fat, without protein to slow it, it hits your bloodstream faster than a candy bar. The granola added another 30 to 40 grams of rapidly digested carbohydrate, and the low-fat label meant nothing was slowing any of it down. Before her morning walk, Sandra had triggered 2 massive glucose spikes. Her medication was fighting uphill before the day even started. This is not Sandra's fault. She was following advice that sounded healthy. The labels said heart healthy. The system that created those labels, that is the real villain here. Not Sandra, not her choices. Her first change was simple. The orange juice became a whole orange. Same vitamin C, same potassium, but the fiber intact means dramatically slower glucose release. Eggs replaced the granola. Her Tuesday morning number 4 days later was 173, down from 189. Number 6 is fatty fish, salmon and mackerel specifically. Here's what I need you to really hear. Insulin resistance is not just about sugar. At its deepest level, it is a disease of inflammation. Your cells are constantly bathed in inflammatory signals that physically jam the insulin receptor. They make the lock stiffer, and no amount of glucose management fully fixes it unless you address the inflammation underneath. Salmon and mackerel are loaded with 2 omega-3 fatty acids called EPA and DHA, among the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds identified in nutritional science. When you eat them consistently, they work directly on the inflammatory signaling jamming your receptors. The cell membrane itself becomes more fluid, more receptive. The lock starts to loosen from the inside. 2 servings per week, roughly the size of your palm each time. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring. Canned versions are perfectly valid. Canned mackerel costs less than a single cup of coffee and delivers the same benefit. If you take blood-thinning medication, discuss increasing omega-3 intake with your doctor first. Not because it is dangerous, because it deserves a conversation. Now, if you are still with me, do one quick thing. Hit the like button right now, not for me, because someone in your family needs to see this information. Your spouse, your sibling, your adult child. When you like a video, the system shows it to people who need it most. Number 5 is broccoli sprouts. Not mature broccoli, the tiny 3-day-old sprouts. The distinction matters enormously. Broccoli sprouts contain a compound called sulforaphane, and the number here is stunning. Sprouts contain somewhere between 50 and 100 times more sulforaphane than a full head of mature broccoli. Not a typo. 50 to 100 times. Sulforaphane does something no other food on this list does quite so directly. It goes to your liver and quiets down what researchers call the overnight glucose factory. Here is something most people with elevated fasting numbers never realize. Your liver makes glucose while you sleep. In insulin resistance, that process goes haywire. Your liver produces far more glucose than your sleeping body needs, which is why so many of you wake up with a high fasting number despite not eating for 8 to 10 hours. A study from Lund University in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to participants with type 2 diabetes and produced measurable reductions in fasting blood sugar. The strongest effect was in the people whose numbers were hardest to control. A small handful of broccoli sprouts, roughly a quarter cup, on a salad or sandwich most days. Grow them on your kitchen counter in a mason jar for pennies, or buy them in the produce section. Do not cook them with high heat. High heat destroys the active compound, raw or barely wilted. Back to Sandra at week 3. Her daughter called me and said something I will not forget. She said, "Whatever Sandra is doing, it is working. She is smiling again at dinner." Her Tuesday morning number that week was 148. But let me be honest about what getting to week 3 looked like. Week 1 was rough. More bathroom visits from the fiber, a headache on day 3, energy that felt flat and strange. She messaged me on day 5 and said, "This feels worse, not better." This is exactly where most people quit, and it is the worst possible moment to quit. The discomfort in week 1 is your body recalibrating. The fiber is doing what it is supposed to do. Your gut microbiome is adjusting. Push through week 1. Week 2 brings stabilization. Week 3 is the breakthrough. Hold on to that. Number 4 is where I want to spend a little extra time. Number 4 is apple cider vinegar. Now, I want to be precise here, because there is a right way and a wrong way to use this, and the wrong way negates almost all the benefit. The active compound in apple cider vinegar is acetic acid, and acetic acid does 2 things simultaneously. First, it slows your stomach from emptying. Slower gastric emptying means the carbohydrates in your meal move into your small intestine more gradually. The glucose enters your bloodstream as a trickle instead of a wave. Second, and this is the piece that still surprises researchers, acetic acid helps your muscle cells pull glucose out of your bloodstream and burn it for fuel more efficiently. It does not replace insulin, but it makes the system more responsive. The doors open a little wider even when the lock is stiff. Research led by Dr. Carol Johnston at Arizona State University, and this is real, peer-reviewed work published in a credible journal, found that taking a tablespoon of vinegar before a carbohydrate meal reduced the post-meal blood sugar spike by roughly 22 to 31% in participants with insulin resistance, 22 to 31% from a tablespoon of vinegar. That is a medication-level effect from something that costs about $3 a bottle. Here's the exact protocol. 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, the raw unfiltered kind with the mother in it, diluted in a full 8-ounce glass of water. Drink it 10 to 15 minutes before your largest carbohydrate meal. Always diluted, never straight. The undiluted acid is harsh on your tooth enamel and your esophagus. Rinse your mouth with plain water after. Now, I must be very direct about one thing here. If you are currently taking medication for blood sugar, whether metformin, a sulfonylurea, or insulin, apple cider vinegar can push your glucose down faster and further than your medication dose expects. This is not a theoretical risk. It is a practical one. You do not want your blood sugar dropping too low. Talk to your doctor before adding this, and if you add it anyway, watch your numbers closely for the first 2 weeks and report anything unexpected. But if you do it correctly, consistently, it is one of the most powerful tools on this entire list. Number 3 is lentils, and this food proves the central point of everything we have discussed today. Lentils are a carbohydrate. They will lower your blood sugar, and that sentence still confuses people when they hear it for the first time. Here is why it works. Lentils are built differently than white rice or white bread or white potato. They contain what nutritional scientists call resistant starch, wrapped inside soluble fiber, alongside a meaningful dose of plant protein. That combination means the glucose locked inside a lentil is released into your bloodstream over 2 to 3 hours, slowly and steadily, instead of in a rush. But here's the part that genuinely surprised me when I first read the research. Lentils carry the second meal effect, the same phenomenon I described with eggs. When you eat lentil soup at lunch, your blood sugar response at dinner is also improved. One meal changes the next. The effect lingers for hours. It is as if the lentil reprograms your metabolism for the remainder of the day. Clinically, swapping white rice or white potato for lentils 2 to 3 times per week is one of the most reliable ways to bring down an A1C over a 90-day period. Not dramatic day to day, but consistent. Compounding, the kind of change that shows up meaningfully when you get your blood work done. half a cup to a cup of cooked lentils a few times per week, in soup, in a cold salad with olive oil and a splash of that apple cider vinegar. They are filling, they are cheap. And they have an extraordinarily low glycemic index for a carbohydrate-containing food. Lentils are also high in potassium. If your doctor has told you to watch your potassium intake because of kidney concerns, discuss this one with them specifically before increasing your lentil consumption. Number 2 is cinnamon, Ceylon cinnamon specifically. And the type matters enormously. Most cinnamon sold in grocery stores is cassia cinnamon, and cassia contains a compound called coumarin. In the small amounts you would use in holiday baking, it is not a concern. But if you are taking therapeutic amounts daily, as a blood sugar tool, cassia coumarin can accumulate in your system and stress your liver over time. The cinnamon you want is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon, lighter in color, milder in flavor, available in most health food stores and increasingly in mainstream grocery stores. You will pay a little more. It is worth it. Now here is the mechanism. Ceylon cinnamon contains a group of polyphenols that behave almost like insulin in your body. They help your insulin receptors grip glucose more efficiently. They also slow your gastric emptying rate, the same basic mechanism as the vinegar, creating a gentler glucose curve after every carbohydrate-containing meal. Research conducted through the USDA Human Nutrition Program found that less than half a teaspoon of cinnamon per day significantly lowered fasting glucose in adults with type 2 diabetes over a 40-day trial period. A well-designed study with real patients and real numbers. A quarter to half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon daily, in your coffee, in oatmeal, in a smoothie. Pair it with a carbohydrate meal, because that is exactly when you want those receptors gripping tighter and that gastric emptying slowing down. Timing matters here. Important note. Cinnamon can lower blood sugar meaningfully. If you are on glucose-lowering medication, adding cinnamon is adding another glucose-lowering agent to the equation. Monitor your numbers. Tell your doctor. Do not add it silently and wonder why your numbers keep dropping unexpectedly. Now, I need to tell you something before I reveal number 1, because this next part is important. Most people at this point in a video like this, they start to feel overwhelmed. 10 foods, 10 mechanisms, 10 protocols, and they think to themselves, I cannot do all of this, and so they do none of it. Here's what I want you to do instead. Pick 2, just 2. Start with the eggs and avocado breakfast and the tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before your biggest meal. Do those for 1 week, just those. Then in week 2, add the walnuts and the cinnamon. Week 3, bring in the broccoli sprouts and the lentils. Stack them slowly. Your body does not need a dramatic overnight revolution. It needs a steady compound interest of small changes. Now, back to Sandra one more time. At week 8, she came to see me. She brought a small notebook, blue cover, spiral bound. She had been writing her numbers down every morning, Tuesday through Tuesday through Tuesday. She showed me the page. The first Tuesday was 189. The last Tuesday on the page was 119. She had not changed her medication. She had not added any supplements. She had changed her breakfast, her snacks, her fish twice a week, and started adding broccoli sprouts and lentils to her other meals. That was it. She looked at me across the table and said, I feel like myself again. I have not felt like this since before I retired. And then she said something that stayed with me. She said, so why did nobody tell me this was an option? And I did not have a clean answer for her. Because the real answer is that the system is not designed to tell you this. The system is designed to manage your condition, not resolve it. But that brings me to the number 1 food, the one I teased at the beginning, the one I told you most people dismiss immediately. Number 1 is fenugreek seeds. I can already hear you. Fenugreek. What even is that? Where do I find it? That sounds like something from a health food store in 1987. I understand. I had the same reaction the first time a colleague mentioned it. I filed it away under things to look at later. For 2 years, I did not look at it. That was a mistake I've been correcting with my patients ever since. Fenugreek seeds are small, hard, amber-colored seeds. They look almost like tiny pebbles. Most grocery stores carry them in the spice aisle for $2 to $3. Indian grocery stores always have them. Here is the mechanism, and this genuinely surprised me. Fenugreek is densely packed with a soluble fiber called galactomannan. When galactomannan hits the water in your stomach, it swells into one of the thickest gels produced by any natural fiber source. That gel physically slows how fast your stomach empties its contents into your small intestine. Glucose trickles into your bloodstream instead of flooding it. No flood, no panic spike, no emergency response from an already exhausted pancreas. But there is more. Fenugreek also contains a specific amino acid that stimulates your pancreas to release insulin more efficiently and simultaneously helps your muscle cells take up glucose from your bloodstream. 3 mechanisms working at once: receptor, pancreas, rate of entry, from a $2 bag of seeds. A study published in the Journal of Diabetes and Metabolic Disorders followed 64 participants with type 2 diabetes over 60 days. Those consuming fenugreek daily showed significantly lower fasting blood glucose and meaningfully reduced A1C compared to the control group. The researchers described the effect as clinically significant. Here is the protocol: 1 teaspoon of whole fenugreek seeds in a glass of room temperature water the night before. Let them soak for at least 8 hours. In the morning, drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast, before coffee, before anything. The overnight soak is not optional. It activates the fiber and increases the bioavailability of that amino acid. Start with half a teaspoon for the first week. Give your gut time to adjust. If you are on any blood sugar medication, metformin, sulfonylureas, insulin, fenugreek can push your glucose meaningfully lower. That is the goal. But if your medication dose was calibrated for your old baseline, you may need a downward adjustment as these foods take effect. Talk to your doctor proactively, not reactively when you feel lightheaded. Now. Sandra. At week 12, Sandra had her blood work done. Her A1C had moved from 8.7 to 6.9. Her doctor called it remarkable, asked what she had done differently. She brought her blue spiral notebook. She showed him the Tuesday morning numbers: 189 on week 1, 148 on week 3, 119 on week 8, 104 on week 11. Her doctor asked what supplements she was taking. She said, "No supplements. I changed my breakfast. I eat fish twice a week. I soak some seeds overnight. I put little sprouts on my sandwich." He said, "Keep doing exactly that." He reduced her second medication. 14 months later, her A1C is 6.4. Now let me give you the complete action plan before you go. Number 10, walnuts. A quarter cup daily, anti-inflammatory at the receptor level. Number 9, chia seeds. 1 to 2 tablespoons daily, gel fiber slowing glucose absorption. Drink plenty of water with them. Number 8, avocado. Half daily. Blunts the post-meal spike and improves receptor sensitivity. Number 7, whole eggs. 2 to 3 in the morning. Second meal effect extends blood sugar stability into lunch. Number 6, fatty fish. Twice per week. EPA and DHA reduce the inflammation jamming your insulin receptors. Number 5, broccoli sprouts. A small handful daily, raw. Sulforaphane quiets the liver's overnight glucose factory. Number 4, apple cider vinegar. 1 tablespoon in 8 ounces of water, 10 to 15 minutes before your biggest carbohydrate meal, always diluted. Number 3, lentils. Half a cup to 1 cup cooked, 2 to 3 times per week. Replace the white starch on your plate. Number 2, Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia. A quarter to half a teaspoon daily, paired with carbohydrate meals. Number 1, fenugreek seeds. 1 teaspoon soaked overnight. Drink the water and eat the seeds before breakfast. You do not need to do all of this tomorrow. Start with 2, the eggs and avocado breakfast, the apple cider vinegar before your biggest meal. Do those for 1 week, then stack in 2 more the following week. Slow and steady. Your gut needs time to adjust. Your biology needs time to respond. Watch your numbers. Report changes to your doctor. Let the mechanism work. You are not broken. Your body has not betrayed you. It has been working incredibly hard to compensate for inputs it was never designed for. These foods, added thoughtfully and consistently, begin to change the signal your cells receive. This is not a cure. This is a powerful evidence-based layer of support, and most people watching this will never have this explained in a clinical setting. If you made it to the end, type "I finished" in the comments. And share this with one person tonight. Your mother, your husband, your sister who has been struggling with her numbers for years. They need this information. You can get it to them right now. The subscribe button is right here if you want to stay in this community. Every week I bring you what the 7-minute office visit does not have time to cover. Next week, I am going to explain why your fasting number is often highest first thing in the morning despite sleeping all night. The mechanism will surprise you, and the fix is simpler than any medication you have ever been prescribed. Your health is your greatest wealth. Protect it. One meal at a time, starting tomorrow morning.